Some monsters don't snarl or slash. They don't creak across floorboards or rattle chains in the attic. No, some monsters plan. They wait. They study your home from the shadows, cataloging every weakness, every routine, every unlocked window, every sleeping child. And then one day, they move. Tonight on the Grave Hour, we unravel one of the darkest legends to ever crawl from the suburbs of Melbourne, Australia. A man known only as Mr. Cruel. A phantom, a planner, a predator, and possibly a killer. This story is told with a mix of confirmed facts, witness statements, and interpreted possibilities. Because despite the decades that have passed, one thing remains true. Mr. Cruel was never caught, and some say he never really stopped. Every grave has a story. Let's dig them up. Part 1. The Stranger in the Room. It began, at least officially, on a quiet morning in 1987. August 22nd, Lower Plenty, a peaceful middle-class suburb. A family of 4 slept soundly, completely unaware that someone had already slipped inside. At around 4 a.m., a man wearing a dark blue balaclava crept through an unlocked window. He carried a handgun and a long knife. He moved silently. He was already inside when the parents woke to the beam of a flashlight in their eyes. He tied up the parents and their 6-year-old son using thin cord and surgical tape, binding their wrists and ankles. The intruder then led their 11-year-old daughter out of the room at knife point. He didn't run. Instead, he stayed in the house. For nearly 2 hours, he ransacked their home, eating food and rummaging through their drawers. In a move that would become a signature, he cut phone lines, disabled alarms, and wiped services clean. Then he left, taking nothing and no one. The girl, shaken, was left behind, unharmed physically, but what stayed with her and would later haunt investigators was his voice. He was calm, controlled, soft-spoken, and he spoke like a man with time. Not a junkie, not a frantic attacker, but a planner. Police would later note the use of surgical tape, the meticulous attention to evidence, and the eerie patience of the man. This wasn't random. This was rehearsed. Part 2. The Taking of Sharon Wills. The next confirmed attack wouldn't come for 16 months, but when it did, it escalated everything. December 27th, 1988, Templestowe, another quiet suburb. The Wills family was asleep. At approximately 5:30 a.m., the man in the balaclava returned. He broke in through a window and again cut the phone lines. He crept into the bedroom of 10-year-old Sharon Wills, shined a flashlight taped to his head across her sleeping face, and woke her gently. He tied up her parents, told them he was only there for their daughter. He led Sharon from the home, dressed her in garbage bags to avoid leaving forensic evidence, and vanished into the dark. 18 hours later, Sharon was found alive, dropped off outside Bayswater High School. She was wearing fresh clothes, had been bathed, fed, and disturbingly, her fingernails had been clipped. Investigators were chilled by the clinical nature of the process. She hadn't been brutalized violently, but rather controlled. Every detail scrubbed clean. No fibers, no fingerprints, no DNA. And the strange part, Sharon described the man as polite. He spoke gently, allowed her to brush her teeth. He wore a mask the entire time, and he referred to himself in third person. Part 3. The Ghost Returns. Nicola Linus. July 3rd, 1990, in Thomastown. 13-year-old Nicola Linus was homesick from school. Her parents were out at a dinner party, and her 15-year-old sister was babysitting. At 11:30 p.m., the man returned. Again, black balaclava, flashlight taped to his head. He tied up the sister with surgical tape, and this time he spoke with Nicola, telling her calmly,
"I'm only going to borrow you for a little while."
She was gone for 50 hours. When Nicola was finally released, left near a power station. She too had been bathed, fed chicken, drank lemonade, and her nails trimmed. And she had been dressed in fresh clothes. She remembered being kept in a room near an airport. Planes roared overhead constantly. Police would later narrow the sound pattern to homes near Tullamarine Airport. Like Sharon, Nicholas said he never raised his voice. He spoke in measured tones, used clinical language, and avoided any personal details. He never removed his mask, not once. And just like before, no DNA. No clues, no nothing. Part 4. The Nightmare Breaks Pattern, Carmen Chan. April 13th, 1991, Carmen Chan, age 13, lived with her 2 younger sisters in Templestowe. Her parents were out managing their Chinese restaurant. The girls were home alone, and around 9 p.m., a man in a balaclava broke into the home. He sprayed graffiti on the family car in large letters: Asian drug dealer and payback. He tied up the 2 younger girls and then abducted Carmen at gunpoint, but this time, Carmen wasn't returned. 1 year later, her skeletal remains were discovered in a shallow grave in Edgar's Creek, shot 3 times in the head, execution style. This was the only murder linked to Mr. Cruel. But here's where it gets complicated. Part 5. A different killer. Some investigators and Carmen's parents don't believe Mr. Cruel was responsible for her death. But why? In all previous cases, the victims were returned alive. Mr. Cruel went to extreme lengths to prevent identification, always blindfolding, always cleaning, even trimming nails. The graffiti painted on the car was reckless. It was loud, it was dramatic, and it was emotional. That didn't fit the careful, cold nature of Mr. Cruel's behavior. There's a theory that Carmen may have seen his face. Perhaps her blindfold slipped, and because of that, he broke the pattern. Another theory suggests Carmen's case was entirely unrelated, and the killer intentionally mimicked Mr. Cruel's methods to confuse the police. But there's no clear answer. Only bones, only silence. Part 6. A Forensic Phantom. Mr. Cruel left no fingerprints, no hairs, and no fibers. Every girl was bathed, and their clothes were burned or disposed of. He used surgical gloves and cleaned up after himself, even vacuumed the carpets, according to some investigators. He surveilled his victims for weeks, posing as a handyman, a telephone technician, or even a school official. He knew floor plans, routines, alarm system codes. Police launched Operation Spectrum, the largest manhunt in Victoria's history. They investigated 27,000 suspects, searched 30,000 plus homes, cross-checked every known sex offender, even scoured video stores, photographers, and teachers near the airport, but they never found him. Part 7. Who was he? Many believe Mr. Cruel was someone educated with technical knowledge, possibly a teacher, a computer tech, or even someone in healthcare. Theories include a former school principal caught with child videotapes but never conclusively linked, a local photographer with access to homes and children records, and a man who died shortly after Carmen's abduction, whose property was never searched. Another chilling idea? He was arrested for an unrelated crime, and he's been in prison this entire time, and no one knows they're locking eyes with Mr. Cruel during visitation hours. Part 8. Legacy and the Aftershock. The surviving girls live in protected anonymity, but the trauma never left. Some have reportedly changed countries, names, and live under protection. To this day, there are no confirmed photos, no definitive suspects, and no arrest. And while his name faded from the headlines, the fear he planted still echoes. Some stories end with a name, a trial, a sentence. This one ends with one empty seat, a man in the crowd, or maybe a neighbor nodding politely. We may never know who he was, but if you hear a soft voice in the dark say,
"Don't be afraid. I just want to borrow you."
Thank you for joining me in the dark. Until next time, stay safe, stay aware, and remember, every grave has a story. Let's keep digging.